Hi, Sean here. I just wanted to show you this VST I'm working on, a quick run through called Lightweaver. So I've got a funky little kind of bass line in Ableton, and I want to add some visuals to it. So I drag in Lightweaver onto the track. This is a synth generating audio, and so I've got my little window here. I got a clock. I'll go over to the ocean, and we'll just start playing. Hey, look at that. Okay, so what this is doing is when I play, it's changing the audio left and the audio right. These are the audio parameters that are coming in from the synth. There's also some MIDI information and some controller knob stuff. This is all configurable, but let's first go over just the general program control. So if I want to do full screen, I click on this button. I can go to full screen mode. If I want to come back, I press the enter key. I can pause. I can, resume the shader. I can recompile as I make changes. If I make a typo and click recompile, then I say, oops, undefined variable, and click on that, and it takes me to the line, and I fix the variable, recompile again, and it starts working again. This is next and previous program. This is how we scroll through. Eventually I'll add a little drop-down list. When you want to save a program, if I type, make some changes either here in the code or in the parameter list, I need to save it. I can click on the little down arrow. You can't save over default programs, so I'd have to change the name to like Ocean 2, click the down arrow, and now I saved. This will also save in the DAW. When I actually save the file in Ableton, it will save directly into the DAW. So you don't have to save programs, but it's recommended if you want to reuse it or post it or just keep it as a backup. You can also delete the program off the disk, and you can create a new program, just sort of a default program with default parameters. So this is the code view. You can change the size. I can change the size here, make the little window a little smaller. I can make the console window bigger. I've got a little text file with some links to hopefully get you started. You can click on help and it'll bring you back to that. If there's an error, then when I click recompile, it will show up here, and I can click on that and it'll take me to the line, like I said. So now, how do I control this program, this code? I'm not a programmer, or I want something that I can control like a live set. How do I control this program using my DAW? So there are parameters, and they're totally configurable. You have these knobs. You can call them anything. I'll go ahead and unlock this configuration so I can edit it. If you lock it, you can't edit it. So if you're performing in a live situation, you can click on this little reset button and it'll reset back to the default value of that parameter, but you can't like accidentally delete or anything. But I'll go ahead and unlock it, and we'll pick this knob 3, which is the red color. I'll say edit parameter, and I can call it, blood, and you'll notice that the type is float. There's only one type right now, but I'll add like vector 2, vector 3, vector 4. There's a default value, which is, I could say like 0.5. There's a minimum, I could say -1, anything. Maximum, there's a bind type, which is important. So if it's set to none, then the DAW can't control it. I can control it in the app, but I can't control it anywhere else. So I can control it clicking on here, there, but it won't change anywhere else. I called it blood, so now if I click apply, let me click recompile. So now it's going to have a problem because knob 3 is no longer exists. So let's go and fix that. We will have to change the name to blood. And you'll notice this little @ symbol. This is how you reference parameters. There's no .x, .y, .z because currently they're all floating point values, single floating point values. So you just say @. I click recompile and it'll work again. So now we've got the red again. So if I click reset, it'll reset to 0.5. Because that's the value that I set there. The bind type is currently set to none. If I set to param and I set my bind ID to say something like 3, click apply, what'll happen is if I click here in Ableton, this param 3 here will control that. And that's settable. I can actually control multiple values with param3. So I could set this one as well. And now I'm controlling both, knobs with param3. Param2. So these are the exported parameters. There's some other settings. So like this audio left, audio right is the bind type is audio amp, which is audio amplitude. Bind ID 1 is the left channel, bind ID 2 is the right channel. The smooth value here is for smoothing out the value changes, so they're not instantaneous. This is really important with MIDI notes. As they trigger on, you don't want them to like jerk, you want it to like smoothly blend, but then maybe sometimes you don't, so you can just turn this off. It's on by default, so click apply. So what I have now is it's being driven by the audio. If I want to drive by the MIDI, at least with Ableton, I can drag it to a MIDI track, and I can set the routing to my ceramic bass and my Lightweaver plugin. And now you'll notice, if I bring it back, that the note and note velocities are changing. The audio left and right are no longer changing. And because I have it in the code where I'm adding them all up, note velocity plus audio left plus audio right, it sort of just works. It's like a general thing that works with both MIDI and audio. But you're free to do whatever you want. This note is the note value. It's the value of note, like middle C is 60, and note velocity is a velocity. There's also note age, which is the start time, so you can subtract that from the current time. I don't really have any built-in parameters. I only have really one built-in parameter, which is at time. So you can go at time, and it will, add or subtract things. There's no other really, I wanted all parameters to be visible. Time is even visible here. You can see the seconds right there, 149. So at time would be this 152 or whatever. If you're familiar with Shader Toy, it would be iTime. Here it's just at time. They both work, but yeah. So that should get you started. So I'm going to drag this back from the MIDI back to the audio, and I'll click play, and you'll see the audio will trigger. And now what I can do is I can group this, and I can create a audio effect, which is a, say, auto filter, and I can map them both to the same knob. So if I map parm3 to macro 1 and the frequency to parm3, then what I can do is change this, and it will change the red value and the filter cutoff. So that's how you control effects. So you can control driven through audio, you can control effects with knobs, controller parameters, or you can control it with MIDI using sort of a sideband MIDI channel that's been piped in. Other DAWs may be a little different. I'm definitely curious to hear how people's experiences are with it. As for the code, it's GLSL. We'll have to provide some docs on how to program, but it's kind of beyond the scope of covering it. But hopefully this is a general overview, and I'll be creating more demos in the future of actual coding on doing actual things. I just wanted to give a quick overview of how to use Lightweaver, and hope you guys have fun with it.